of ISD 622 School Board. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. So can I get a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Navy,
Second.
second by Jarman. All in favor, say aye, and we need to do a roll call.
Before you do that, real quick, do you think the iPhone that's waiting to come in is probably Manny? I'll let him in. It just says iPhone in the waiting room.
It's probably Manny. Yeah.
I'll let him in.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Hi.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so the agenda is approved. Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is public comment, and we have no public comments tonight, right, Kim?
That's correct.
Okay, so then the next thing is the consent agenda. So the consent agenda. Okay, the consent agenda consists of routine items that are acted on in a single consolidated motion without board discussion. Board members have the option of pulling items off the consent agenda if they wish to discuss them or consider them individually. So we have minutes of October 27th, 2020 business meeting, minutes of November 10th, 2020 work study session, minutes of November 12th, 2020 special meeting, minutes of November 12th, 2020 board retreat, routine personnel, bid calendar, change order, and disbursements. Okay.
I would like to pull 4G.
Okay. 4G. 4G is change orders. Okay. Then I'm going to read the resolution without 4G and look for approval. So be it resolved by, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 622 that the consent agenda items 4A, B, C, D, E, F, H be approved as written, and a copy of the agenda items is attached to the minutes. So can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
moved by Jarman, second by Hunt. All in favor say aye. And Kim, please do a roll call.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Hi.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so the consent agenda is approved with the exception of 4G and Steve.
Yeah, this doesn't have to be lengthy, but this piece of the consent agenda included a resolution for approval, and because it was a resolution, I thought it would be appropriate to have a brief explanation and then an opportunity for the board to vote on it as a resolution. I understand that it's not 100% necessary requirement for the board to vote on it because of the dollar amounts involved, but it was presented as a resolution, so I just thought it would be appropriate to follow through with it like that.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, Randy or Christine, do you want to speak to this?
I'll let Randy go if he's able. Otherwise, I can step in.
Absolutely. So again, remember, these are things that come up during the construction process. It can be either owner requested, it can be code types of changes because of state and or local, guidelines. It can be driven because the plans did not include certain pieces. And so as you can see, when we're looking at, and again, just remember that we have contingency funds available for these types of things. These are, again, not unusual. It's something that happens, throughout construction. Again, as you can see, we had some electrical types of things, phaser electrical. So if we're looking at Carver, that is a large number. It's well within the range of our contingency. At the moment, we still have probably almost $1 million left of contingency at Carver. John Glenn, very similar. These are things that are either code. A lot of them were because of code. Up in Carver, a lot of the electrical here were for things that we either added or that were changed during the planning process, didn't get on the original documents. And similar to John Glenn, Justin Allen Page, the change order down there was owner driven. And it had to do with, I'm just trying to think now. One was the mobile partition in the gymnasium. And the other was the PA system. So the PA system that was supposed to be consistent with Eagle Point. So these change orders here for Justice Allen Page were actually driven by us. So.
If I could add something to Randy's explanation, and Steve, I appreciate you bringing this up because back at the beginning of this whole process, you may recall there was a big news story that came out about the time we passed our facilities bond referendum about another district that was way over budget. And some of the reasons they were way over budget that they listed were due to change orders, not tossing out bids that came in too high and just accepting whatever anybody offered them and not really I'm simplifying it, but there's a couple reasons for it. And so change orders should always be looked at. But one of the interesting things about change orders, they can be a good thing. So we have come so far under budget with each project so far, which has been amazing. And so sometimes that means you have a little extra money to spend on the project. And so you put a change order in to add it to the plans. And so that is another reason why you add them. And sometimes we're adding them because of things that come up. The reason we don't want to add them is because we didn't think of something. Like one of the really wonderful parts about Jenna's job right now is the user groups that meet, the planning and all the input groups. Because what happens if you don't do that, you build a school and then all of a sudden the science teachers go, hang on, you never told us about this. We need XYZ in our science rooms. And because they didn't plan ahead and do the input gathering they should have done in the beginning, then you have a change order for a lack of planning. Change orders because you're into the process and something needs to be changed because of, like we get into asbestos removal or whatever happens in the middle of a building process, or there's simply some extra money. We had that going on at Richardson. We originally were going to have a smaller gym, but we were able to make it bigger because the budget was such that was allowable. And so I just want to add that those are some of the reasons why, but I appreciate you bringing it up. And I'm just so grateful to Randy and Jenna and your work because we've been able to keep these projects well under budget, which is just amazing and pretty unheard of these days.
And if anything over 175,000 comes forward, obviously that we bring as an action item to the board. I just want to make sure from a transparency standpoint, that we're looking at these things. So it's good that, that you pulled it. But again, and then also just so you know, and we're not planning on doing this, but if all the contingency dollars are used up, then obviously we have to come back to the board and do a action item for any additional change orders that occur. And again, I'm not planning on doing that, but I'm just kind of giving you kind of the, how I would handle these things. Again, Carver had quite a few here. A lot of it was through electrical, some changes that we did. We're keeping a handle on that. Again, we're working with a new architect that I think is probably doing a better job designing our buildings completely than, let's say, our previous one. But there again, it is what it is. Like Superintendent Osorio said, all of these projects that we have here were under budget, considerably under budget. And of course, we were able to do some additional things at North on their project. And again, we still have nice contingencies available through the duration of these construction projects. So at this point, I'm not too concerned. So.
Yeah, at the beginning of this process, when we went to the public for approval and during the entire process of figuring out what we wanted to build and how we wanted to bid it and pay for it and everything, I think the administrative team has done an excellent job of of creating a transparent process and vetting it through a number of public options and managing the money. So that's not my concern at all. I think that everything that I see in front of me is perfectly reasonable and not a problem. The only reason I wanted to bring it up was simply because it was a resolution that was within the consent agenda, and so I thought it would be appropriate to pull it and have a brief discussion over it. I'm glad you went through the process of reviewing it so that the public continues to stay aware of where the money is and how it's being managed. And I think the word managed is a lot more appropriate than the word spent, because I think it's being managed in terms of an investment in the brick and mortar part of our education in 622. So my hat's off to you guys. And without any other discussion, I would move approval of the agenda item.
Thanks. Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. So on approval of item 4G change orders, we have a motion from Hunt. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second from Anderson. All in favor, say aye, and we're gonna do the roll call. Kim?
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Aye.
Carly Ruff,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so the consent agenda is approved. Next on our agenda, we have reports, and we're gonna start out with our student school board reps. Thanks for being here, you guys. Evan or Mandy? Which one do you wanna go with first?
I can go first if you like.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah. So, of course, I mean, there's a lot less to report on, given the fact that, I mean, a lot of the stuff has calmed down with keeping with virtual versus hybrid, given that hybrid is not an option. But going on that, I mean, the tries just ended. A lot of students had virtual finals or virtual final projects that had to kick off, and then the return date for all materials was today as well. Pickup date will be a separate day. That's given student activities. I mean, the football season, volleyball season, of course, all sports had just been concluded sort of unexpectedly. But I mean, North got its first win last month in like 4 years. So congratulations to them. All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, pretty much same thing going on at Tartan. Not a whole lot to cover just because the debate between virtual and hybrid has sort of settled down now that we are going to be hybrid for about the next month or so. Same with North. Our sports pretty much abruptly ended last week. I know for Knowledge and Quiz Bowl, we've been doing pretty well this season so far. Had a couple of virtual scrimmages, which has been nice. I believe that theater is planning for another show sometime soon, maybe. It might be virtual. Nobody really knows yet, but that's just sort of the nature of, you know, how this school year has gone. Nobody will really knows what's going to happen because it can change from week to week so quickly. It's hard to, you know, get a grip on any sort of concrete event or happenings going on because everything can stop in a matter of a week. So, but I mean, yeah, we've had our end of try today as well. Students are trying to keep in good spirits, but it's definitely difficult with a lot of these activities being canceled. So yeah, just hoping to get through the winter and hoping for things to return to normal fairly soon, hoping for our activities to be able to start up again after this pause. That would be ideal, but I mean, who knows right now, right?
All right, thanks, Evan and Manny. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All right. Well, thanks again, you guys. And yes, we're all hoping things can go back to normal.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda, we have Assistant Superintendent in Teaching and Learning with the World's Best Workforce Report.
Yep,
good
thank
evening.
you. Oh, go ahead, Troy.
No, go ahead. You can. Either way.
Yeah. So
Have a-
yes, thank you. We are here on behalf of Teaching and Learning. I'd like to introduce Dr. Rachel David. She has joined us this evening as our coordinator for our REA department to share our World's Best Workforce presentation with you. So, Dr. David, you are a host and should be able to share.
If I could, while she's getting ready for that, I'm just going to say a couple of words. That many districts have not chosen to do a World's Best Workforce report or presentation this season because there's such a gap in data collection from last spring. But our team has bravely dug right into it. And I will say it's pretty exciting because some of the data collection tools that we use, we've actually been implementing this fall already. And you'll hear a little bit about that from Rachel's presentation. And for all of those who might be watching, although I just heard we might be having some trouble with the live stream, it says on my screen and Sean's that it's live streaming, but we got word that it might not be going through right now. So we'll try to figure that out. If not, we'll have to post the video afterwards because I don't know what else would be happening here. In the meantime, I hope all the board members, you all got the full presentation with a video recording from Rachel over the weekend to look at. And so our plan for this evening is to give you a shortened version. Although in board book, all of the slides will be in board book that were in her original presentation. So anybody who is wanting to look at that has access to it. But we wanted to give you just a real short overview tonight because you've already watched the video and received all this information ahead of time. So just wanted to let you know, if you have questions about the whole report, any part that's not highlighted tonight, Rachel is still happy to answer questions, as are the rest of us, but just wanted to give you that context. So with that, take it away, Rachel David.
All right, thank you, Christine. Good evening, Board Chair Yenner and Superintendent Tucci Osorio and Assistant Miller and board member chairs. Thank you for just affording us an opportunity to go through our achievement report this evening. As Christine said, you know, this is going to be kind of an abbreviated version. If you have any questions at the end, we'll be happy to answer those questions for you. So just to talk a little bit about who we are in 622, we have over 10,000 students enrolled here in our district, have 66 different languages spoken. It really speaks to the level of diversity within our district. And we have over a 50% free reduced price lunch rate. So just talks about the level of diversity within our district. When we kind of take a look at some of our surrounding districts, we're actually, when we take a look at our student demographics, we're actually have a higher rate of student diversity than Minneapolis Public Schools. And so our diversity, even from last year, continues to grow. And you'll see this throughout our presentation tonight. So just a little quick snapshot of what is World's Best Workforce. So there are these 5 accountability measures that we're responsible for tracking and reporting on, and that includes kindergarten readiness, 3rd grade reading, making sure 3rd graders can read on grade level, ensuring that we're closing the achievement gap between students of color and white students, taking a look at our preparedness for college and career readiness and post-secondary education, and then our graduation rates and making sure that we continue to work towards all students graduating when they leave District 622. We're not going to talk a lot about the impact of COVID-19, but we are clear that this has had a significant impact on some of the data that we've elicited and determining whether or not we've actually met our World's Best Workforce goals. And so, you know, as we've stated before, we've pulled the data in a way that hopefully allows us to do some comparison, even though we didn't have spring 2020 data results. So our first accountability measure is in kindergarten readiness, and our goal was to achieve 3% growth in both reading and math as measured by September 19 to September 20. From a historical lens, you can see that our data kind of has sustained for over the course of the last 4 years. When we take a look at, this is where we start to see a little bit of a variation of how we're reporting our data. So these were the subtests that we decided to kind of try to add some comparison data in there for in determining how our students are doing. So we looked at letter names. So you can see here that we've made a 2% growth. And this is that same subtest, but in relation to reading performance by race. The second subtest for reading was in letter sounds. So again, you can see 6 or 7, 8% growth there. And again, our reading performance by race within that same subtest of letter sounds. The other measure for kindergarten readiness is in the area of students' math development. And so you can see for the most part, we've had over the trending of 4 years, we've had pretty significant, significant's not the right word, I apologize, pretty stable. We did see a little bit of a drop off this last year, which we talked about in greater detail in our presentation that you received last week. We did take a look at our kindergartners' readiness as it relates to number identification, and we identified that there was a 2% growth there, as well as the fact that many of our student groups are performing comparatively as shown here in our number identification by race. The other subtest was in number sequencing, and you can see a growth there. And then again, what we're seeing is just this pattern of our student groups continue to be performing comparatively among all of the subtests. So I think what we can really say around our kindergarten readiness, and this is really an amazing feat, quite honestly, considering all that education continues to endure in light of the changes through COVID, is that our kindergartners are actually performing either at or above what the kindergartners were performing last year. And I would say that that's actually a bragging right. The second point, our accountability measure that we have is around the third grade promise. And our goal was to increase from 4.8% from September 19th, not September, spring 19 to spring 2020. Unfortunately, because we didn't have spring assessments, again, we had to kind of modify how we were reporting the data. So we took a look at our second graders last year in winter of 19, which was the last data point that we had for testing last year, and then actually track that as a cohort. You can see they've actually made 7% growth, which is amazing considering if you pay attention to kind of what the news is saying is this COVID slide, right? And what this is showing us is that our students have not necessarily taken this COVID slide as much as one might have predicted. In addition, you can see here that our third graders, all student groups are growing. So this speaks to the kind of the achievement gap and ensuring that it's not just our white students who are growing, but all students are making their growth and contributing to our overall percentage of growth. Our third accountability measure is an achievement for all. So this really ensures that we are closing that achievement gap. The goal is set by World's Best Workforce in the Minnesota Department of Education, and that is to make sure that 90% are attaining proficiency with no student group below 85%, and that is set by 2025. So of course, because we didn't have MCA rating achievement data last year. So what we did was we took our most recent, which is 2018, 2019, and we went ahead and compared that. We've actually set the new rates, which are identified here based on your green bar. And so the goal for MCAs for this 2021 school year would be the rates that you see in the gold, in the green bar, I apologize. Our next accountability measure is in career and college readiness. And so our goal was to attain 57.5% of graduating seniors attaining college and career readiness. Our district, in collaboration with Advisory 622, identifies college and career readiness based on these criteria set forth. And if you take a look at our trending data, you can see that we've attained growth every single year with a 3% growth from last year until this year. In addition, we also took a look at ECT testing to see how our students are performing. And what we can acknowledge and what the data shows is that 46% of students at North and 57% of students at Tartan are performing above the national average. So the national average of composite scores is 20.7, and 57% of our students at Tartan are performing above that, and 46 at North. And then finally, we take a look at our post-secondary enrollment. And so you can see that compared to the state, we're performing 2% above the state average. And then our final accountability measure is in high school graduation. And so the goal was to attain 81.9% of our seniors becoming high school graduates here in 622. Again, this goal is set based on a rate of 90% graduation rate by 2025. We are comparative and actually just slightly above the state average of 83.8% of our students are graduating. And when we take a look at that by race over the 4-year graduation rates, you can see that every student group has actually grown from last year's 4-year graduation rate to this year's 4-year graduation rate, with actually 2 student groups already having attained that 90%. So that's amazing news for us. As we consider what our goals are for this year, we're actually asking that and we presented this to advisory just about a week and a half ago, that we have maintenance goals. And so what this looks like is that for each of the accountability measures, we'd maintain 55% for literacy in kindergarten, 65.5% in math for that kindergarten readiness. We'd work towards 65% proficiency in 3rd grade reading. For achievement for all, again, still working towards that 90% by 2025. And so if you take a look at the 2021 column, that would be the proficiency rate that we would want each of those student groups to attain. For college and career readiness, even though we didn't meet our goal of 57.5, our goal for this year is to meet that goal of 57.5. We were just 2.5% shy there. And then for graduation, we're actually setting a goal of 84%, which actually puts us a year ahead of what we had set forth based on the table that you see to the right. And with that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
If I could just add something, when we pulled this data together and Rachel first presented it to me, I was quite shocked actually that we have done as well as we have in kindergarten and 3rd grade measures. Given what we've been through this season, it's amazing to me to think that our kindergartners of this year are at a higher starting point than our kindergartners who started last year. And I just tell you, that is an amazing testimony to our preschool programming. The fact that our preschool students have been given in the midst of COVID, given such a leg up like that, that's just unbelievable. So shout out to all of our staff, and we'll be making sure everybody hears this from the mountaintops. It's a pretty amazing thing. And 3rd grade as well. I mean, what an amazing job. You know, it's harder to measure because we don't do, without the state measures, it's a little different in the secondary sites, but right now with our elementary, we do have really strong measures, and our teachers have found ways to administer these measurements even within distance learning. So we've got good data to work with. So amazing job. Shout out to all of our teachers and early childhood staff in particular. And of course, Teaching and Learning and Rachel for her work on this. So it's a rough year because we don't have the normal data we're working with.
I was at Carver on a testing day last month, and exactly what Christine was saying, it was really a smooth process. Everyone was really careful about working with the students to move them to a testing location, and it was one-on-one testing, separated student by student. So it was really safe, and it kind of worked really well with the flow of the classroom that I was visiting.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Anybody else?
What are we doing about the students that are not scoring as high? Do we have a team, like an action team that's being productive in that area? Because although we have successes in the two ethnicities, what are we doing about the ones that are lagging?
Yeah, we absolutely have a really intricate team of interventions and supports at not only the elementary level, but the secondary level as well. Extra time is given to anybody who's falling below in any of the areas that they need to be performing in. And so we have a pretty rigorous system in place with that. And actually, it occurred to me that that might be a good thing to bring back and share with the board again, another update on kind of our MTSS intervention, because we could do a whole nother presentation on all the ways in our district. And one of the things I think is pretty incredible is that we have what I need time, win time, where teachers actually provide extra support to all students and really, really targeted interventions. And every one of our elementary schools has additional intervention teachers just hired to extra support with this extra time. And we've got a pretty rigorous MTSS structure finally now in place for secondary. And I don't know, Sean, you want to add anything to it, but there's a lot of supports in place that are pretty amazing, actually. And I agree with you, Carly. We should never, ever sit back and rest on our laurels and feel like we've got it all figured out, because we absolutely don't. There's a lot of places where we want to continue to grow and improve. And in fact, I'd like to, at some point in the next coming up meeting, share some of that and some of the things we're looking to add into our system to even fortify it even better.
Can she show the college enrollment data one more time?
Absolutely.
My computer unplugged, so I was out for a minute, and I'm a little frustrated about that because I really am definitely engaged in this topic here.
Let me see here. So here's the criteria set forth by 622 advisory. So this is how we identify all of our students in terms of whether they would be considered college or career ready. And then here's our historical, here's our historical data. So you can see over the last 3 years, we've continued to grow, making a 3% growth from last year to this year.
So just Carly, this is like kids who are taking college credits while they're in high school.
Yes, I have a baby cousin doing that at Woodbury.
We have very high numbers actually in college classes in high school, very high actually.
Can I see your breakdown by race?
I do not have a breakdown by race, but I can absolutely get that to you and send that through to through Kim.
So one of the concerns I want to bring up with that is their how interested are they in college, and what colleges are they applying to and getting accepted to? That's a concern for me for children of color, because sometimes they're not as encouraged to go to predominantly white colleges. And I want to know, what efforts are we making to expose them to historically Black colleges, to other, more wide spectrum outside of our neighboring colleges. So I just wanted to, we can add that in the notes. And
absolutely, we can bring you more information. And for any information we send to you, we'll send to the board, and obviously, have that available for anybody who wants it as well, because yeah, absolutely.
And put me on the call list for that. I'm very, very highly engaged in that topic because it's important. So put me down, Miss Rachel and Miss Christine, Superintendent, because I definitely want to help out in that area. I know Miss Ayers is also an expert in that area. So I think it's highly important, and I think that engagement and enrollment would go up with some education and opportunities for the parents and the students in that space. All right, thank you.
And can I remind you, Carly, that we'd also like you to join our advisory team, and you'll get
you'll get the
first-hand look at every little bit of it.
Okay, I'm getting panicky, like, wait, I need to be here for that.
No, we got you, because we would love to have you join as a parent too, because it is a really amazing, it's a great place where parents and staff and students even come together to look at some of those exact issues. So
absolutely, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up.
Christine and Rachel, I have to say I'm very surprised by this data, and relieved. I know you did a shout out to the teachers and the staff. Is there anything else we can say about how we accomplished this?
Well, you might recall when we publicized a lot of the work that we were doing on kindergarten readiness. Remember how a few years ago we brought all the kindergarten teachers in the whole district to talk to you about how they actually closed the achievement gap? Like they closed it, shut it down. I mean, it was amazing. And I think I've actually talked about this with other districts. I think one of the key factors is it was driven by the teachers. It wasn't a top-down effort. The teachers looked at the data and the teachers looked at where they needed support. And then they told us what they needed from us. And in particular, what they needed at one point was more explicit access to phonics materials. Over time, if you've ever heard of the reading wars, there was a time where phonics was not as emphasized as much, but there's a lot of research in modern times that talks about how that's actually critically important. And so I think that if you look at, and I don't know, Rachel, if you wouldn't mind going back to slide 21, just to give you an example. I think it's slide different. It's the kindergarten reading performance by race. One of the most amazing things that's happened is that the district didn't roll out some plan and say, go do this. This came from the teachers. And if you look at the green are the kids who are on college pathway. Our Black students are outperforming our white students in our kindergarten program right now. And it's just unbelievable. And I will say our American Indian doesn't look good because there's only one student in this count. That gets back to the issue of counting, though. We have to get back to, remember we talked about that in our racial equity retreat. But one of the interesting things to look at is how to continue to create those intervention pods. And this is what our teachers have done an amazing job of. And it's been driven by them. And what we've been working to do is say, tell us what you need and we'll bring it. Like you are the ones leading the charge. We'll provide expertise, training, and we'll get you what you need. But it's when the teachers work together and say, all right, let's look at this as a team and problem solve it as a team. And then they work together and reshuffle their groups and everything on a regular basis. And I don't know if Jenna's still on here. Jenna has spent many years doing this work as a principal before she went into her other role in facilities right now. But Jenna, I don't know if you want to add anything to it. Jenna is an expert in this work for sure. And she was part of when it happened and how it grew.
Absolutely. I think you named exactly what happened. I think the most powerful part of that work that happened in kindergarten several years back is the fact that the teachers were the ones researching and kind of figuring out where are our holes and what does research say we should be doing and how do we plug those holes. And as soon as they figured out a plan and they all kind of got on board with that same plan, I think Christine is absolutely right, is that it was driven by teachers. So they really took some ownership over it. And we started to see some pretty amazing results right in that first year with our kindergartners.
And then that energy, synergy, I actually prefer to call it, has moved its way up to first grade and now second grade. And there's this real can-do attitude. Like, actually, we do have control over these outcomes. We can change these outcomes. It's kind of like the work that happened with our young scholars and all the, because, there's so much out there about how gifted programs are incredibly biased and favor white students over others in so many different ways. And, our district, and again, this was driven by a lot of folks. I don't even take credit for it, but I think what we got to do is empower people. And they put together the amazing programming with young scholars. And then we took Abbott and ran with it and finally got to a place where our AP classes, our college credit bearing classes, actually mirror the demographics of our district, which I don't know many districts that can say that. That's pretty unusual. But this is what the ingenuity of our staff, when we say, here's your goal, figure it out, what can we do? And you may recall, I think it was a year or so ago, we did a report, or a couple of years maybe even, did a report for you on the longitudinal study that we kind of looked at what happened to those young scholar kids when they went on. And it's amazing what happened with our young scholar kids. And I think, Carly, the issue you're looking at is we need to look at our SLEDS data. The SLEDS is the data that tells us where do our kids go after high school? What happens to them then? And so that's one of the pieces that I think is next on our horizon to get a better job looking at. SLEDS basically stands for Minnesota Statewide Longitudinal Education Data System. But it looks at, did they go to college? Where did they go? How long did they last there? And what kind of workforce did they head into? So pretty amazing stuff. Bloomington Public Schools, for example, is doing some really innovative research on this area right now. They haven't shown their cards to many people, but I weaseled my way in and had to sit down with them to hear what they were doing, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I mean, the word that comes to mind is heroic. I just am so impressed and thankful. You know, 60 Minutes last Sunday had a piece about, I don't know if you saw it, about the reporters went to Tampa, Florida, and followed a social worker who was sort of contact tracing to find students that had fallen through the cracks, that sort of disappeared. And there were like lots. And, you know, students jammed into crowded homes without, you know, access to technology and so on and so forth. I mean, just lots of chaotic family situations so that the students were not doing school. But, you know, have we had that at all? I mean, have we lost track of some students? Are we really vigilant about, you know, attendance and finding the kids that we think maybe aren't engaged?
We are incredibly diligent. In fact, every meeting I have with our principals is how many kids have you lost track of this week? Who's off the radar? And I mean, at our large high schools, it was down to like 2. I mean, you wouldn't believe the effort. And it's heroic because people have been really following up. They get in their cars and they drive there. They figure out what happened to them. But we're very well aware that we've got to keep everyone on our radar right now, figure out what they need and customize our supports. And so I would say that's something I'm very proud of, the amount of effort that's gone into it. And this is the other thing too. And I often think about, you get a heroic person, right? A charismatic social worker or somebody who is just amazing, but it doesn't change the system. But when everybody does it, that's how we do school, then it's systemic change. Because otherwise you're reliant on some amazing person who's going to change the world for a little while, but then they're going to retire, go away, and then all of a sudden the system never changed. And so we really look a lot at how do what we can't have. I mean, we want our heroes. The individual heroes are amazing, but it's got to be replicable, and we got to do it with everybody, or it's not going to change the system. And so I think one of the things I'm most proud of is our principals meet all the time, and now our assistant principals meet. The third grade teachers across the entire district have a weekly meeting with just third grade teachers, and all third grade teachers. Like, it's not hit and miss who wants to be involved. Everybody's involved. And I think that's a big piece of this effort too, is that I think that's what makes things a little more unique in our district, is that it's very much, I always talk a lot about how do you flatten the organization? And by flattening the organization, it means it's you take away the hierarchy, right? Like, the district says this, the district says this. And my answer is always, you are the district. If a teacher were ever to say that to me, I'd be like, you are the district. Tell us what you need. We have to respond to the grassroots leadership of so many people who have got great ideas. And that, I would say, if I had one thing to be proud of, it is the way, and it's not just me, it's our cabinet, everybody who works, we are all servants to the people on the front lines, because we want to empower everybody, but we also want to not have it be about one wonderful person who wants to save the world and nobody else is doing it. That doesn't work.
And I'm also curious about last year's data for the fall or whatever that we can compare this to see, you know, what effects did distant learning have on this? I think this is worth like digging into a little deeper to figure out this phenomenal data here that I'm loving, because I'm an elementary mom in this district, so I'm proud of that, and it makes me feel safe. But what's working then? You know, like Christine said, they were doing it across the board. But I also would want to know from the families, you know, because I know some of my parents, my students' parents were saying distant learning is working for their kid. So, and they've been doing great, better than before. So culturally, what's happening here is that the support base at home, you know, what's happening that we need to take notes of and consider moving forward. But anyway, I can stay here forever and look at this, but
and I'll just remind you too, Carly, in the report that you got over the weekend, tonight we're doing the abbreviated one, but
yes,
in the original slide deck, it's got the historical trends over time.
Awesome.
So you can go back and look at that. Yeah.
This was great. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Oh, hang on. I'm not hearing you, Michelle. Is anybody else hearing her? No.
Was I just talking? You can't hear me? Yes.
Now we can hear you.
I think I turned off my speaker instead of my mute button. So anyway, I was just saying to Rachel, thanks for the flip presentation that you provided for us. And thanks for coming tonight to talk us through this. And I'm happy that you're able to find some suitable comparison data since we didn't have our usual standardized tests. However, despite what you've shared with us, I'm still concerned about the achievement over the last year. I'm glad that the data looks promising, but I look forward to the day when we can get the kids back into the classrooms and make sure that we are reaching our achievement goals. And I always like the review of the world's best workforce, just as a reminder of what our achievement goals are and how we're doing. So I'll be looking forward to your next report post-COVID. So
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, anything else, you guys?
I just want to say, I mean, this is a testament as well to parents and guardians and people who are monitoring and assisting their students, because everyone has had to step up, and it's really challenging, and it's so I'm hopeful that there's a light at the end of the tunnel relative to vaccines and so on that'll stop the community spread so we can get kids back in school, because that is our goal. Obviously, that is our goal.
Agreed.
All right, anything else? Okay, thanks again, Rachel. Thank you, Troy. Next on the agenda, we have the superintendent with a few different items.
I got a few different things to share with you. I'll be brief. The first is COVID. I feel like I'm always going to give you, as I've always been doing in recent months, a facilities update every time. I want to give you a COVID update, at least just for the foreseeable future until we kind of can get out of this. So I'm going to share my screen for a moment. Hopefully it works, and just kind of let you know where we're at with things. Okay, so I just want to kind of walk back through some of at least what the current data is showing us. As you know, we have we've got a website, a page on our district website that has an update of what information is new to us in the past week, right? It's updated every Monday. Now, I got to tell you, with that being said, I didn't update it with yesterday's data because we had a major change in it. So I just left it in here this was the slide I put in there on Friday when I sent it to you, and I had not checked it for Monday before I sent it, but we've had a major drop in cases in the district because all of a sudden nobody's there. So they're not really reporting to us right now. So I'm going to tell you that I was just talking to Alicia, our lead nurse, today about it. And, she was asking, she was concerned. She said, I don't know to what extent our families are going to report to us if their child has COVID, if they're not actually coming to school. And I said, I wouldn't expect that they will. We will always want to hear if they can give us that information and want to, but we will expect a major drop in numbers here, and not because necessarily there's a drop in COVID, but kids aren't in school, and so they don't have as much of a need to report it to us. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there for right now. This, as you know, is our look. Every week we get an updated case rate from the state health department, and this data is that original. I truncate it, and you know, the original one has all the counties in the state, so I always truncate it just to put Ramsey and Washington in here so you can see them. And you can see the guidance, original guidance from the state that says, obviously, once you're over 50, both groups should be in distance learning. And this is the official data, which is 2 weeks old. And you can see that Ramsey and Washington County are very much above that amount, above that limit. Now, Washington County does on their website separate out what portion of their data is only due to the prison outbreak of COVID. And so the number is a little bit more in line with what Ramsey County is seeing. But again, this is the 2 week old data. And so, if I can get my slide to move forward now. Okay, so I also, everybody in the world has been looking at this amazing site put together by Dr. Wolfson at the University of Minnesota. He's a statistician in the Department of Health. And what he does is he's created this website, which has sort of become the go-to for everybody. The health department won't publish data until it's been cleansed and checked for accuracy. Like, for example, if somebody were to take a COVID test in one county, but they live in another county, or if somebody got doubly counted. So they don't publish it until it's been reviewed thoroughly, which takes time. What he's doing is posting real-time data. And so this is a look at, and by the way, I didn't even update it. This is since the slide deck went to you on Friday morning, this is the slide as of that date, but it's changing by the day, honestly. So what this trend shows, these little black dots are dates in time that have already happened. And that's how the health department reported their date. Okay, so their data for that date. The black dots are what the health department came back out with in terms of, or the black squares are the official rates that have been provided by the Department of Health already. So you can see that some of it was even higher than what was originally produced in the news media that day. The blue triangle is what they think the next projection will show from the Department of Health. And the purple dots are where they think that will go. Purple has not happened yet. These are dates in time that had not happened yet at the point I screenshotted this. And these are points in time they believe the data is going to go toward. And you can see just Ramsey County alone, this was last week's data, was already at 119, and they don't have a prison. So this is just community spread for the most part. I remember back in August when we looked at these charts originally, and I remember thinking 30, that would be so high to get above 30. When would that ever happen? And here we are at numbers we never even thought we'd ever see. I mean, they always said we would, and here we are. Oops, oh dear goodness gracious. Somehow I closed that little loop. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. I apologize. Okay, now let me get back to screen sharing. I apologize. Technology. My actual district laptop had to be sent back to the shop for some repairs, so I'm working off of a personal laptop that isn't quite as savvy. Okay, so this is Washington County. And as you can see, the rate for Washington County is crazy high, 144. So it basically reinforces the move that we just made. These are numbers that are just unbelievable. I remember a month or two ago, not everybody knew somebody with COVID. Pretty much nowadays, everybody knows somebody with COVID, right? So this was kind of our latest guidelines. November 30th to December 22nd, we did make the decision to shift everybody to distance learning. For a while, we were trying to hang on to in-person supports at Next Step and Harmony and some other special needs programs. We have had to suspend those temporarily, not because there's a big COVID outbreak in those places per se, but there's too many staff who are quarantined. And we're hopeful that if we can take a little break, we can get those back on track. Even if numbers stay high in January, we'd like to still bring back Next Step and Harmony if we can. Our families have made it really clear it's hard for some of our students to learn at home. I want to put a heads up that at the December 15th board meeting, which is next month, I'm going to want us to, when I bring my COVID presentation, I'm going to want us to talk about, you know, kind of where we think we're going to be for January, and if we are able to resume, at the very least, resume some in-person supports. But hopefully at the December 15th board meeting, we'll have a trend, at least on what the impact of of the Thanksgiving holiday did to our data statewide as well. In the meantime, I just wanted to share a couple things with you. Our free meals continue for all students. Our food service team has served over 1 million meals since March. I'll say too that Paula Polkamp, who's our supervisor for nutrition services, did an amazing job, went after a large grant to feed adults in the community. And this grant is $750,000, but it has to be spent by the end of December. So you would not believe the work that's underway with our nutrition service staff to prepare. And actually tomorrow we have pickup sites all over the district where we are picking up, families can pick up, adults can pick up a turkey dinner for 7 in a box with all the fixings. The turkeys are pre-cooked. The stuffing, the potatoes, all what's in it is all cooked. It just needs to be warmed. It comes with instructions. And they are really moving. They want to move a lot of food. So people don't have to make a reservation. They can show up to any of the pickup sites, and all the information's on our website. But they have it set up every Wednesday through the month of December. Large family meals are going to be handed out to adults for every week through December. So it started last week and it's going through December. They served 15,000 adult meals on their first day last Wednesday. So that's pretty exciting. By the way, a lot of districts around us didn't go for this grant because they felt like it was too much money to spend in too short a time and it would be too much work. And Paula was like, no way, we're going after it. And she did. And they gave us, I think that's part of why we got such a large amount, is because others hadn't gone for it. Adventure Connection, we're trying to continue with programming. That's our school-age childcare. We are looking at possibly consolidating to some sites if we see low enrollment. Staffing challenges continue. We have people getting COVID or getting quarantined because of COVID. And so we're continuing to, we have to periodically shut down a program for a little bit till we can get staffing back up in place, but we're monitoring that as well. Adult basic education has been all moved to virtual classes for right now. And we've temporarily shut the testing center just because of staffing issues, but we're going to try to reopen as soon as we're able to. Transportation. We have been providing transportation in the mornings to our non-public sites. And we've agreed to keep doing that. And the reason for that is it doesn't cost us anything to keep doing that because we have a certain amount of work that we're trying to keep our own drivers employed with. I think if we were spending extra money on it, we would think about it differently. We're not adding extra routes back, but just for these few weeks where we're in total shutdown, we want to maintain work for our drivers and our bus monitors. Our hope is to not have to look at furloughing or laying off staff quite yet. I will say if this were to continue long-term in a shutdown, drivers that's one group of employees, it's hard to do work at home. So we've been trying to figure out who among them is willing to do other kinds of work. You know, is somebody willing to work with students and you know, we're doing a survey of staff in the bus garage just to find out, you know, how can we best use people's gifts and talents right now so we don't have to lay anybody off, especially right now. And then one of the big questions out there is reentry planning. What's our plan going to be? We're looking for more guidance from the state regarding when and how should we come back. How long do the numbers have to be dropping before, and how much and for how long do they need to be dropping before we continue, or before we look at increasing in-person supports again? And then again, how can we get better and smarter with those supports and interventions? And then also just continued transparency. One thing we told our parents when we shut down secondary on the 30th of October is that we said, before November 20th, you will find out what the next step is. And we told them a week ahead of that date. We said that before winter break, we'll tell you what's happening in January. And I'd love to tell them the plan even before the date we already said we would tell them, so that we can people need to plan. And that's what we're working on. So with that, I'll just take comments and questions.
Christine, I'm glad that we're able to continue the transportation to non-publics. There was a lot of concern, a lot of fussing over that issue, and you know, I'm glad that we won't have to address that again. So good for you for finding a way to continue that service. I think that's important. You know, the President-elect Biden got on television today and talked with Lester Holt on Channel 11 and talked about how much it would cost to return schools, to get schools back up and going again. I mean, he mentioned the word billions,
Oh yeah.
In PPE and sanitation and this and that. I mean, are you forecasting that it'll cost us a significant, amount to return to in-person learning?
I'll just say this, we've already been spending a lot of money on the extra hours for sanitizing. I mean, we can't put a full load of students on a bus. We have to run more bus routes. We have to space the kids out. You can't fill the bus to capacity. We had to space out the times of the routes so that there would be time to sanitize the bus between every route. All of those things have a cost to them for sure. So I would say we're already in the stage of figuring that out right now. But what is really looming on the horizon, I think, is our potential budget cut after this school year. So two key things are happening. Number one, we've lost a lot of enrollment, and we're not unique. Every public school district pretty much in the state has lost a lot of enrollment. People have enrolled their children in homeschool programs and in private schools where they've been able to keep kids in person. And so our loss of enrollment, we're now up at around above 350 students lost in our district this year. And so you all know that this year's enrollment and attendance rates build next year's budget. So that's what the state builds the budget on. So as Nancy well knows, because we've been in a lot of communication about it, we're really hopeful that the legislature will hold people harmless for those enrollment drops this year, and let us just have our budget allocated to us based on our enrollment previous year. The second piece that's happening, and this also affects funding, is that we also are funding and our programming that we build, all those supports and interventions I just talked about in our previous presentation. We fund those with a couple pots of money, Title I and Comp Ed and equity dollars. And those are all funds that are often based on free and reduced lunch counts, particularly Comp Ed and Title I. And I'll say the Title I, the people signing up for free and reduced price lunch is dramatically dropped because it's free this year, right? And thankfully to the government for offering free lunch to everybody. But one of the problems with that is that now nobody's filling out the form. And one of our pieces we've been really trying to advocate with the legislature is help us find a different way to account for free and reduced lunch. Is there a way the state can look at income taxes or neighborhoods, or I don't know, but the fact that it's reliant on somebody filling out a form, it has a lot of issues with that. Number one, you've already got people who are mistrusting of education. If you look at our American Indian community, the historical trauma and the distrust, the Black community mistrust of school organizations, and now you want me to give you my private information. Our undocumented families are so afraid that if they fill that out, there's going to be a report to immigration, when in fact that's not true, but it's a lot of communication to try to help people understand that. So we already struggled to get an accurate count on that, but then you add in that now everybody's getting it for free. Why would anybody fill out the form? And then the third thing that's going to impact our budget this coming year is simply the economy. As you know, we get our funding largely from the state of Minnesota. And if the state of Minnesota is in an economic crisis, there's no way they're going to be able to serve us well with there's going to be so many competing interests in the legislature during this funding cycle this year. So we're very nervous. So the costs are there. And I think even more concerning, we're going to have to start talking right away in early winter and beyond about how are we going to have budget reduction planning conversations, which is really sad because in a time when our kids need extra supports, we're going to probably very likely be facing budget reductions. How's that for a long answer, Nancy?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I can tell you that the forecast for, the so-called November forecast comes out Tuesday, December 2nd, is that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that says how much money the state has, and it's not going to be pretty, Mm-hmm. And I can also tell you, breaking news, that a very conservative member who was head of the tax committee is now head of the Senate Education Committee.
I heard.
You heard. Okay. So that's tough. That's
very tough. Very tough.
Very
so
tough.
We're going to have some really difficult times ahead.
And then pivot to another follow-up thing on your presentation. The fact that we're feeding all these people in the community is so amazing. And I wonder if we could get our wonderful Josh to get some media attention to that. I mean, honest to God, providing turkey dinners to, you know, how many people? I mean, I've seen the lines of cars and so on. I mean, it's just, you know, it's really,
It's amazing.
you know, we are the biggest community asset, and we're doing amazing work and feeding our citizens. And I think it'd be great if we could get a little more attention to that.
Well, I will say that I just did a radio show last Friday morning, as I do every Friday morning, about exactly that topic, and particularly these turkey dinners and all of that. So we're going to continue to push it out to anyone who will take our stories. You know, I learned a lesson a really long time ago, to never say no to a reporter who wants to talk to you. And Nancy, you have this. You're a reporter, former reporter. You get this. But like, one rule I have is always say yes and take charge of the message. Even if it might not be a positive story to begin with, you can make it a positive story. So I think that's serving us well. It's why I think we get a lot of spots on NPR regularly when they need a short notice. Hey, I got to do a story by tomorrow. My producer gives me this deadline. They know they can call me, and I will talk to them day or night. And Jessica Miles and other reporters, they have my cell phone on speed dial, because if they're on a deadline, I always say, if you're on a deadline and you don't have someone to talk to, you call me, because I'll definitely do the story, and I don't care when it is, I'll do it, because you can always use that opportunity to get good news out there. And that's what we've been really trying to do a lot of lately.
So Christine, I've heard recommendations that teens and those in their 20s should get tested even if they don't have symptoms, because they're likely contributing to spread. And I know that there's teens at our school who have been quarantined from close contact from, for example, the volleyball team.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to quarantine, and frankly, they're being encouraged to be tested as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it caught my eye today that there were a couple of district publications that talked about an opportunity to get a free at-home spit test that you can sign up for online. Do you know anything about this? It's the first I heard of it today.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say a little bit about it?
Absolutely. And we've been sending this information out to families more and more, as now that this has become so widespread in the testing capability. It's only in the last few weeks the state's really gotten to a place where they can test anybody. You don't, in the past, you kind of had to like say you were symptomatic, even if you weren't, to try to get a test. You don't have to do that anymore. Everybody can get a test. And if they don't drive or don't want to go, they can sign up and get this sent to your house. And I know this for a fact because I'm the mom of a 17, 19, 20, and 21-year-old, and I got them all tested in the last 2 weeks, just because I said, you guys are in the range of kids that should get tested. And there was a really good news story in the Star Tribune about that. And so I personally have ordered spit tests for 2 of them. I got one of them into Walgreens and one of them into CVS. And all of them are free everywhere. They will ask for your insurance if you do have it, but if you don't have it, it's also still free, even at those drive-through places for the most part. I know because I've done it as a mom. I've gone through the app and done all these things, but we have been really sending people a link to wherever they can get COVID tested. And I always tell people, if you're not sure, Google it. Where can I get a COVID test in Minnesota? Because the information is changing a lot. The Minnesota Department of Health has a really great up-to-date list every single week of where are the spaces you can best get tested. But I always tell people, if you're not sure, Google it, because it's right there. It'll send you right to the Department of Health website. But there's a lot of great options. And there's, on the Department of Health website, they have this link now to where you can order that test at home. And it's pretty amazing. I will say, when you get the at-home test, you can't just spit in a tube and send it off. You have to schedule a Zoom meeting with somebody who watches you do it and checks your ID, so they can ensure that the person who's taking the test is actually the person they have registered. So you do need technology to do that. But it works to have a phone. Most people have a phone they can do that with.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So I'm up next if you want me to keep going. I am just doing a really quick facilities. And I'll just say this. I'm not going to, again, kind of like our other presentation, This is just a really short recap, but when we talk about something in a work study session that's kind of new and updated information, we like to then share it in a public board meeting so that we can just make sure that the public has a chance to kind of see some of that as well. So I'm going to cruise through this really quickly because you as a board already heard all of this from Wold last week. And thanks to Jenna, who's here. She actually put the slide deck together. So I probably shouldn't even steal your thunder because it's actually her work, not mine, but I'll just buzz through it and Jenna can answer the questions you may have as well. But last week, we actually had a great presentation from our architects, Wold Architect Company, and they talked about where we're headed with our plans for Tartan High School and North High School. And I'm not going to read these slides to you because you all have seen these before, but for anybody who was viewing this live streamed or the recording, if the live stream doesn't get up and running in time, this is also connected to Board Book, and all of these slides are in Board Book because I think people are going to be interested in them. But again, we want to have similar experiences for both of our schools. North is a much newer school than Tartan is, but yet there's some things we need to do to North also to make sure that it has, that as we do both together, that we're going to have ability to make them comparable high schools. We don't want one to have more than the other in different ways. So safety and security, as we know, is our #1 goal, as well as the flexible and innovative learning spaces. These are some ways that people have been involved. Jenna has been deeply involved with core planning groups, student user groups, and what have you, to make sure people have input as to what their dream high school would look like. This is just a really, you all seen this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but it gives you a little look at what the future plan is for North High School, kind of the footprint of it. And again, people who are watching this and go, wait a minute, slow down, I want to look at that again. It's all in Board Book and you can go see it. I will tell you, I shared these slides with my own daughter, who's a Tartan graduate, because she really wanted to see what they look like. So this is all public, but it just kind of gives you some basic information about what the addition's going to look like at North High School. And this is all North High School, the secured entrance, and then the multi-floored addition that's going to have a lot of different spaces in it. This is really fun if people want to just comb through and look at the maps of the buildings and see what happened. But most importantly, every group that is affected is getting input gathered. And Jenna leads all of those, and she's on here with us tonight, meetings with science teachers and FACS teachers and who have you. So we also learned that Wold shared with us that there's a new expectation that buildings now have an even higher ability to handle weather. So the idea of being in a tornado and having to go to the basement, they have to build the building strong enough to handle the tornado hitting the side of the walls while you're in it. So there's a real interesting different standard of building code as well. So some just really cool looks into what the additions are going to look like at North High School. This is that timeline. Construction basically begins next summer and it's going to go through the next 2 years after that. Remember, by fall of 22 is when all the elementaries and middles need to be done so we can have our boundary changes. Construction at the high schools is expected to go beyond that, but at the high schools, we are going to work around that while kids are still attending school. This is a look at Tartan High School. And this just gives you a footprint view of where that's all going to happen. And I'm buzzing through these really quickly because you guys all had a long presentation about this last week. But for anyone in the viewing public, these are all in your documents. You can look at this and have fun going through it and send us your questions too. So this just gives you a look at some of the spaces that are being developed. One interesting piece is the unisex bathrooms. I always say it's a lot easier sometimes for people to understand. Same-sex bathrooms sounds very different than unisex. Unisex just means there's stalls right off the main hallway and you can go in there and open them. If you look at any of our old buildings, most staff bathrooms are unisex bathrooms. So it's not different than that. It's just the change is having that for students. So this just gives you kind of a look at how these flexible breakout spaces are going to allow us to have students who sometimes during the day might be in-person classes, and then they might have a class or two where it's online and they can go to open workspace that's available to them to be able to do work and learn independently. And that's part of what we really need to do. The goal here is to have it feel a little bit more like a college campus. If you think about student unions and student centers, the way there's lots of different spaces for people to go and sit and do work. And so this just is kind of some of the drafts. And again, same timeline for Tartan, except it's going to take a little longer to get the work done. The renovations that need to happen to Tartan are pretty extensive because of the amount of time, the amount of work that has to be done because it's a much older building in need of a lot more improvement. So that kind of gets it a little bit. I'm buzzing through this quickly, but Again, I want to just remind you all, as board members, you all saw this. We had a long discussion last week, and actually we recorded that work study session because we're in virtual times. That work session is also recorded and it's posted online. So somebody who wants to see the longer version of this presentation, that's online for you to go look at, as well as this whole slide deck. So in my effort to save time a little bit, I certainly want to open up to any questions and comments you may have. And I'm glad that Jenna's here to answer as well, because she's in the heart of all this work right now.
Well, Christine, I think this is proof to the community that we certainly want the students to come back to school eventually.
Yes.
Because we're making our schools beautiful and improving them, and they're going to be gorgeous. Has it helped the construction process to have students not there?
Absolutely. Jenna, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think it's just, you know, you're not constantly worried around working around kids and staff and noise and dust and all that fun stuff that you endure when you're in a construction process. So to that end, that has been wonderful. If there's maybe one positive to all of this, it would be our construction work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even John Glenn, for example, you know, when we made the decision to shut down all in-person stuff for a few weeks, just as a pause, even special ed and that, immediately they jumped right on it so that they could shut down the office and do some major work that they wouldn't have been able to do if even any students had been in the building. So it's pretty exciting, actually.
Right. And the other takeaway from that wonderful presentation last board meeting is that tartan will no longer be round, which to all, I've been on the board 20 years, and all former board members should be shouting Yahoo, because that round building caused us nothing but headaches over the years. It was just whatever goofy architects planned that thing, you know. I hope they're not in business anymore, because that was really a bad design. And
it's kind of a trend of the time. Oakdale Elementary.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, like Oakdale Elementary, if you think about how that's a round building like that, that is Peter Mao, who used to be on our team, would always, because he was a principal there, and he's like, oh my gosh, get rid of the round buildings. But yeah, it was a trend of the time for sure.
I know. It was a mess. Yeah, and the interior classrooms in those pie shapes were that was just crazy. Yeah.
And you know what we have found is it's costs money to renovate them. And it costs money to, you don't maximize your square footage the way you would if they weren't round. And what they've now, architects now know that. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I just want to, again, everybody, this is all online. If you want the longer version, it's all online. And on our YouTube channel for the district, you can go and see the longer presentation with Wold last week, which was really, really informative. So just a reminder. The final thing I just wanted to mention, well, I actually have two items left. I just wanted to kind of do a real shout out to our board. We had a racial equity retreat last week. We had a busy week last week. Unbelievable participation, engagement, and our equity supervisor, Sharice Ayers, and all of the department, including our Office of Indian Education, really brought forward some amazing conversations. They challenged us. And for those who may be interested, we as a school board and as an administrative team are going to be looking at possible equity policy development down the road. And where can we spent some time studying some examples from other places and looking at what are some pieces that we value and find important for our future planning. And I would argue not just for an equity policy, but also for our next iteration of our strategic plan. So I'm not going to show a slide deck for this right now, but I just wanted to thank our board for your amazing participation and shout out to our equity team who put together a really rock star job. So.
And I just love that we're at the forefront of this, relative to getting a policy together. Obviously, our data shows that we are among the most diverse districts in the state, and we're proud of that. It's an asset, and we're happy to improve and move forward. So yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. And I just, I have raved and raved about our school board and the level of engagement that you all have shown, not just with this topic, but when we did our gender inclusion policy, your willingness to learn and grow. We all had to learn and grow some in different ways, and try to hear perspectives that maybe aren't perspectives we're familiar with. And it's just amazing to me. I brag all the time about our board because you are an incredible team, and I'm just amazed at what we're able to accomplish, and I'm super excited about where we might be heading next.
Hey, just a quick question, Christine. What's the next step as far as the policy that you were just talking about? Is Sharice going to go into like a planning phase of her own?
Yeah, actually, she just talked with me today, and thank you for asking that, Ben. We're looking at, possibly checking in with a consultant or two to get some good advice about where to go next with it, but how to best engage our community with this conversation. We don't want to develop a policy in a vacuum, at a school board meeting. And so Sharice is currently working on putting together a whole action plan timeline with Sean. Sharice reports to Sean, so they're kind of a tag team on all of this, and they've done some really good initial thinking on it. And we'll be putting together sort of an action policy planning timeline, I guess, if you will. Shall I move on to the next item? I have one left. I know I have a large superintendent report tonight. Just policy revisions. Again, I want to recap that at our last work study session, which again, for anybody who's watching, it is posted online, the video of it, of that meeting. Normally, those are not live broadcasts, but in these COVID times when we're meeting virtually, they are, and will continue to do so. So we had our first reading of some policy revisions, and these are basically policy revisions based on state statute changes. And I'm not going to read all of them to you, but they are posted in board book. They're publicly posted. Anybody can go and read them, but there's four key areas that are being proposed for some revision. And these, again, are MSBA model policies. We always take what they offer us and we look at it with our own lens. We don't always just lockstep adopt what MSBA sends us, because sometimes we have different opinions on this. Sometimes it's a pretty easy revision because it's based on a change in state statute. So there's a couple of them. One is tobacco-free environment, changing some of those definitions around what tobacco is, and also include some information about education of students in there. Student medication, that policy has been reviewed for a first reading. And that again is policy number 516. And so this just talks about that, how the drug or medication is being stored, and provisions for designating who's going to be administering that. And also a place for unclaimed medication. What do you do if at the end of the year, nobody comes and picks up their medication? We now have a policy for what everybody has to do with that medication to properly dispose of it. So that's one of the policies that are up. The other one is school district curriculum instruction goals. And this is one that has been revised periodically. There's a couple of pieces in here. One of them that includes now is this screening for dyslexia, and that's due to a change in state statute. So that piece is in there now for the revised policy as well. And then the next one, apologies, I'm trying to do two different screens here. The next one is, let's see. Nope, I guess those are the three. I'm sorry, there were only three. The next one is actually at the action item, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. So those are basically the three changes. So the tobacco-free, the student medication, and then the change in curriculum instruction to include the dyslexia. So this now qualifies, as you know, in order to pass and adopt a policy, we have one reading that happens at the work study session where we kind of go more in depth with it. Then we have a second opportunity to kind of share the information. We always publicly publish it in board book, and we share that with whoever is requesting copies of it. And then the third reading is where you do your final vote and adopt the policy changes. So with all that, any further comments or questions on those three policies, which are all in board book and public view of board book as well?
Just one thing, Christine, relative to the new chair of the Senate Education Committee. Dyslexia is his major interest, as you may or may not know. Yeah. So there'll be a lot of conversation about that.
There was a lot of advocacy about that,
Yeah.
dyslexia, that got that into the state statute.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, it was not a difficult thing for us because our existing testing that we do with young kids, we already had that in our system. We didn't have to go buy new tests to do that. So that's the really good thing, is that we were already doing that before. So it didn't change anything. We just added the language to our policy now. So with that, Chair Yenner, that is the last of my 4 items for you for right now.
All right, thanks, Christine. Anybody else, comments, questions on any of that? If not, next on our agenda, we have our action items. Okay, so our first action item from the business office is acknowledgement of contributions, and Becky.
Thanks, Michelle. Minnesota Statute 123B.02 permits school boards to receive for the benefit of the district bequests, donations, or gifts for any proper purpose and apply the same to the purpose designated. In that behalf, the board may act as trustee of any trust created for the benefit of the district and for the benefit of pupils thereof. Therefore, the Director of Business Services recommends the following resolution. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 622 that the school board accept with appreciation the following contributions and permit their use as designated by the donors. This evening we have Sharon Espinoza from Great River Orthodontics donated school supplies to District 622 schools, and Steve and Karen Slesher $100 to the North High football program. Brings our total fiscal year 2020-2021 monetary contributions to $5,498.38. And I would like to make a motion to accept those donations with appreciation.
All right, thank you, Becky. So we have the motion by Becky. Can I get a second? Okay, second by Anderson. All in favor, say aye. And Kim, can you do the roll call?
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson, Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Carly Ruff,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, and with that, the acknowledgement of contributions is approved, and thanks again to those donors. Next on the agenda, we have teaching and learning. Sean, I have you listed there. It's the site improvement plans and committee membership.
Yep, thank you. So this evening we need to bring forward 3 different committee memberships to the board just to share those members, and then of course some additional documents. So the 3 groups that I'll be sharing with you are our Advisory Staff Development Committee, our Site Professional Learning Teams, and then of course our 622 Advisory Committee. So I do have a presentation that I'll pull up very quickly. Share my screen here. All right, so we should be seeing the presentation here for the Site Improvement Plans Committee membership. When we look at our site improvement plans, the plan writing process is demonstrated here. So reflection begins in the spring of that prior year for our site improvement planning committees. We look for input from our parent groups and many other stakeholders. Those site teams do collaborate throughout the summer, and then of course during our welcome back week, those plans are shared with staff. When we look at our site improvement plans here, they are housed here in this folder for you. Within that folder, you will see all of our different buildings here. So if for your access, you can definitely take a look at these. These are available to you. If you're interested in a particular school's site improvement plan for 2021, they are all housed here and linked for you. Coming back to our presentation, Within those sites, they identify those student outcome goals. Another category in those plans are changes in adult practice, and then a calendar of events to implement those changes. So those 3 areas are all housed within those plans that you'll find in those linked documents. The rationale for explaining that thinking, we're looking at what problem are we trying to solve, making sure that the problem is defined as a discrepancy between reality, reality and desires. And then of course, we're implementing those changes that connect to the root cause. So those are our site planning committee plans that are presented tonight to the board. Our next committee that we're looking at is our Advisory Staff Development Committee, so ASDC. So this is the site professional learning teams, and then of course our District 622 Advisory Committee. The ASDC committee, their policy directs membership. So these people, the members, are defined by our district policy. That group plans, implements, and evaluates our staff development, and then supports the site teams with their plans. So the committee membership, as here accessed in the presentation for all of you, shows the members of that staff development committee. So you'll notice that we do have a number of members from the district office, and course members from each of our buildings are part of that team, including all areas from our student services and other departments within the district office. So that membership is housed there for you to access. Excuse me. Our site professional development teams, those are made up of principals, supervisors that assemble those teams of teacher leaders. They assist in writing and implementing and evaluating the site improvement plans that we shared on that first slide. The team memberships are housed here for those, again, listed by our buildings. So you'll see each of the buildings' teams listed out by who those members are, and of course the teacher leadership from each of those buildings listed out here for you to access. Finally, our District 622 Advisory Committee, which we have members here as a part of that committee. The members are part of our board policy of who needs to be a member of that. So we have a school board member, administrators from each of our levels, teachers, students, parents, and other community members are represented on that group. They advise district administrators and the school board around curriculum, instruction, assessment, and then of course the World's Best Workforce Plan that was shared with you this evening. The committee membership is here again. This is listed out by membership of who and what parents we have. As you will see, we are seeking some additional members that have, for whatever reason, have chosen to not be members anymore of this committee. So we are looking to fill a few spots here from our parent perspective on this group. But again, our membership is listed out here for you to approve. Okay. So I will go ahead and escape that, stop sharing.
Thank you for that, Sean. Does anybody have any questions about that? And just so you're reminded that the school improvement plans are all linked in there, so anybody can go and dive into those individually. But rather than have him read them all to you tonight, it makes a lot more sense that you can explore those, and as can the public as well. Do we have any questions?
Thanks for that. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm ready to move on if you.
I was just going to say thanks for that presentation, Sean. It was helpful. And I'm going to read the resolution unless there's other comments, questions. Okay. So be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 622 that the membership of the Advisory Staff Development Committee, the Site Professional Development Teams, and the District 622 Advisory Committee be approved. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Livingston.
Second.
Second by Jarman. All in favor say aye, and Kim, please do the roll call.
Steve Hunt.
Aye.
Becky Navy.
Aye.
Caleb Anderson. Ben Jarman.
Aye.
Carly Ruff.
Aye.
Nancy Livingston.
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. So that motion is approved, and thank you again, Sean. Next on our agenda, we have superintendent with adoption of the 2021-2022 school calendar.
Thank you, Chair Yenner. as you know, every year our school calendar committee gets together, and it is comprised of a group of folks who are recommended and nominated by the NSPMOEA, our teachers union, as well as different folks from around the district. And, you know, we have a certain number of days already in our contract. And we also have certain requirements by the state. So it's always kind of a running conversation. It's really about, where do you move the deck chairs? How do you move the deck chairs around? And so last year and this year both, we were presented with a really unique situation. Traditionally, we have always started school after Labor Day. As you know, state law requires schools to start after Labor Day unless they get approval to start before Labor Day. And the reason you can get approval is if you have construction happening in your district, of which we have plenty. So interestingly, for this current school year, 2020, and again next year, 2021, Labor Day falls very, very, very late. This year, it was as late as it could be, September 7th. And I believe next year, Labor Day actually lands on September 6th. So by waiting till after Labor Day to start, the end result is that you either shortchange the time that people normally take for winter break, or you end the year even later. There was a lot of discussion about what's best for students. We have known that students learn better earlier in the year. There's some really good progress that happens earlier in the year. We know that a lot of our state assessments, and not just our MCAs, but our ACT exams, right, our AP exams, they all happen about the first week of May. And for a course that's taught with the intent of having a student pass that exam, when school continues into mid-June, there's a lot of weeks that are not helping to plan for that exam. And the thought was, let's give our kids as many instructional days before they have those opportunities to try to earn college credit, and rather than having those days tagged on at the end of the year. So with that, once again, we did do a survey, and we did send this out to all employees just to get feedback again. Last year, we did a big parent survey and a staffing survey. And once again, the consensus or the recommendation of the masses is really that we just go ahead and start before Labor Day again for a second year in a row. Now, again, we won't be able to do this forever because we won't have construction forever. But thankfully, if we're going to have years where Labor Day lands very, very late, it's nice that we happen to have construction to also coincide with that. So with that, we do have a recommendation here for the adoption of the 21-22 school calendar as recommended by the calendar committee. And I believe that you have a resolution to read as well, unless people have questions about it first. Is that correct, Chair Yenner?
I had one question. Is it the case that maybe we don't need snow days built into the calendar?
Great question. Yes. In fact, we kind of have had to chuckle a little bit about that right now because, first of all, I always use the analogy that these COVID decisions are like I always said snow days are a superintendent's nightmare, but COVID decisions, whether to stay open or close or change, it's like a perpetual snow day that never ends, and we're constantly being berated for whichever direction we go. But you're right. We now have the ability to do e-learning days. And we have submitted a request to the state to be allowed to do that, so that we can, in the event that we choose to have an actual snow day and it's an in-person day, we can use an e-learning day instead. And so I do think that snow days, this is before COVID, there were few districts set up really well to handle that. We are now, among everybody else, really well set up to handle it. So hopefully we won't have those nightmare decisions that we've had in the past where you get to the end of the year and you're like, wait, do I call one more snow day? Because now it's going to send us into June. So hopefully we can not have as much of that happening unless it's some extreme year and I don't know, something changes legislatively, I suppose. Good question, Nancy.
Christine, in that case, do the kids all keep their devices?
Yeah, so in our e-learning plan, the goal would be that thankfully with a snow day, you typically know there's bad weather coming. In fact, the National Weather Service in the last couple of years has been really amazing at actually pulling together webinars with superintendents 2 days, 3 days, 2 days, 1 day before an event, just to put it on everybody's radar. So in the event that we know, let's say we're all back in person, we're not doing distance learning, COVID is over, what we would do is we would gear up and say, all right, kids, teachers, take your devices home with you because we might have a snow day coming. And that's kind of where we need to be ready for. But now we have some systems in place. We already have Seesaw set up for elementary as a learning platform, and we already have Schoology set up for secondary. And even when we're full-time back in person, we will continue to use those platforms. They won't go away. We were already trying to get to those platforms before COVID started, irregardless of it. And now we just got fast forwarded, which is great.
All right, any other questions or comments, or I'll read the resolution?
I think you can go ahead.
Great. All right. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 622 that the attached calendar be approved and adopted for the 2020-2021 school year, and that pursuant to Minnesota Statute 645.44 Subdivision 5, the School Board of Independent School District number 622 has determined that Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples' Day, is not a legal holiday, and therefore public business, including school board and informational meetings, may be transacted on that day. Additionally, schools will be open on Veterans Day, and in accordance with state statute, will have at least 1 hour of activities in observance of Veterans Day. So I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Livingston,
Second.
second by Jarman. All in favor, say aye. And Kim, please do a roll call.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson, Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Carly Ruff,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. So that motion's approved, that calendar is approved, and thank you, Christine, and thank you to the calendar committee as well. Next, we have revision of policy 522. And that's
Okay. Policy 522, oh my, this is kind of a little bit out of whack. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at an agenda, I'm getting confused. I think I truncated it too much. So policy 522, revision of policy 522 is actually based on some federal changes that happened on May 6, 2020. The US Department of Education made some, the Office of Civil Rights made some changes to Title IX legislation. And with that, there were some requirements, extensive requirements, specifically related to sexual harassment in the Title IX legislation. And with it, there was a lot of expectation that school districts would revise policies and put a lot more, not only procedures in place for handling complaints, but also more professional development and training for school districts for handling these kinds of things. So again, this is a policy that we did not go in depth with reading every piece of it because it's like 14 pages long, but we have spent a lot of time. You've all looked at it. We had a first formal reading and a second formal reading as well. And tonight is an adoption, right? Is tonight the adoption? I apologize. Yes, tonight's our adoption. Again, all of this is change in statute. It's we've thoroughly combed our own policy to make sure we're updating all of the information we have so that we are in compliance with the federal statute that has been changed. And our local Title IX coordinator representative is our Director of Student Services, Tricia St. Michael's. And so she is our go-to for any Title IX complaints, including the sexual harassment complaints. And she's very, very thorough, by the way, with any kind of an investigation of sorts. And so this policy just updates with that new federal language. Any questions?
Right, any questions or comments? Okay, so again, this is our third reading, so this is an action item and we'll approve, or we'll vote on the approval tonight. So the resolution is, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District number 622 hereby revises the following policy, 522, student sex non-discrimination. So can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Livingston,
Second.
second by Navy. All in favor, say aye, and Kim, please do the roll call.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson, Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Carly Ruff,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so that motion is approved. So policy 522 is approved. Next on the agenda, we have guiding principles and 622 boundary committee charge.
I am very pleased to once again present to you Jenna Peters, who is our principal on special assignment overseeing facilities. And Jenna and Josh Anderson, who's not here with us this evening, are basically co-chairing the effort to oversee our boundary committee work and our boundary change design process. And so I'm just going to turn it over to Jenna to say a few words about that.
Thank you, Chair Yenner, directors of the board and cabinet. You reviewed these guiding principles in the 622 Boundary Committee Charge Statement at the November 10th work session. And so we're asking you to take action on these items tonight. As a reminder, we are undergoing a public process for school boundary changes that will result in new boundaries to be implemented in the fall of 2022. Our school boundary committee will be formed in December, and the plan is to begin meeting in February. And the goal of this committee is to recommend new elementary school boundaries to the school board in late spring of 2021. Something we've talked a lot about is that we recognize that changing school boundaries can be difficult, and also want to acknowledge that it's very likely that our school board will hear some strong opinions from our community members regarding our new boundaries. There is no process that we can facilitate that will please everyone with the new boundaries, and hearing from our community members should not be seen as a sign of a poor process. Our measure of success will be based on really aiming to run a transparent process that involves and includes our community members and adheres to these guiding principles to the greatest extent possible, and also to our district's mission to develop and empower lifelong learners who thrive in diverse communities.
I don't know if you want to, I know it's all in board books, so we didn't put together a presentation for tonight, but those guiding principles, I think, are very much researched based on what our own values are, our own mission statement, our own strategic plan, and then also what we have seen has worked well in many, many other districts that have done this work before us.
Great, thanks. Any questions or comments?
I just have a quick
So
comment.
Jenna, yeah, Steve?
I'm much more observant of the process that we're going through to do this as I am the outcome. I think the outcome will be important to the parents, but from a board member's perspective, I'm much more concerned about the process. And I think the process that you've outlined is excellent. I think it'll go a long ways towards answering any questions that individuals might have about how we end up wherever we end up. I think these guiding principles, what you shared with us in the work study session, I think is exactly what I would expect to see as a board member.
Thank you. They've done a great job. I'll hats off to Jenna and Josh and their foundational leadership with this. And I have to add Troy too, because Troy's been really having a lot, Troy oversees all the inter-district transfers, the open enrollment, and he has been a key team member as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't add him to that too, because he already manages everything so beautifully with an equity lens in how we look at the work and how we think about how to best build really equitable environments for all of our learners.
Okay, yeah, and I want to second what Steve said. This is a great document. It makes you feel confident that we're headed in the right direction. So thank you for that work. Anybody, if you have any comments or questions, otherwise I'm going to read the resolution. Okay, so be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 622 that the boundary change guiding principles and committee charge statement be approved and presented. Approved as presented. So I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Hunt. Second by Livingston. All in favor say aye, and Kim, please call the roll.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson, Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Carly Ruff,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so that motion is approved, and thanks again for your work on that. Next on the agenda, we have, for the school board, we have to set an agenda, time, and location for December 8th, 2020 work study session. So I recommend that the December 8th, 2020 work study session begin at 4:30 p.m. in a virtual format and contain the following agenda items. Number 1, superintendent check-in. Number 2, audit update. Number 3, boundary process update. Number 4, board officer and committee discussion. And number 5, board check-in. So I need a motion and a second to approve that, right, Kim? Yeah. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by, was that Jarman? And second
Yeah.
by Livingston. All in favor, say aye. Kim?
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Carly Ruff,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston, Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so that is approved for the November 24th, approved for the December 8th meeting. Next on the agenda, we have set January 12th, 2021 special meetings. So I recommend that a special meeting be held on January 12th, 2021 in the boardroom of District 622 Education Center or in a virtual setting at 4:30 p.m. with the following agenda items. 1, a call to order. 2, oath of office. 3, election of officers. And 4, organizational resolutions. Can I get a motion and a second to approve that as well?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Anderson. Second by Livingston. All in favor say aye.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson, Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Carly Ruff,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so that motion carries, and that's the approval for the January 12th meeting. I guess at this point we have that it's on site or virtual, and it will depend. And I hope it's on site, but we'll see. Next, we have January 12th, 2021 work study session, agenda, time, and location. So I recommend that the January 12th, 2021 work study session begin immediately following the January 12th, 2021 special meeting. Approximate start time of 4:45 in the boardroom of the District 622 Ed Center or in a virtual format, and contain the following agenda items. Number 1, superintendent check-in. Number 2, boundary update. And number 3, board check-in. So can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Jarman.
Second.
Second by Livingston. All in favor say aye.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Carly Ruff,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. Okay, so that motion carries for the January 12th work study session. Next, we have revised the date of the February 2021 board retreat. So I recommend that the February 13th, 2021 board retreat be changed to February 20th, 2021, with the time remaining unchanged, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and the location remaining unchanged, District Ed Center or virtual format if needed. Can I get a motion and a second for approval of that one?
So moved.
Moved by Anderson.
Second.
Second by Jarman. All in favor, say aye.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Carly Ruff,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Caleb Anderson,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. So that motion is approved as well, and that's our board retreat. Next on the agenda, we have board communications. Steve, do you want to start us off?
I don't have anything specific except what's probably an obvious observation. If people are going to spend time with loved ones over the holidays, please take extra care to be safe. Do everything you can to protect yourselves and the people that you love.
All right, thanks, Steve. Becky?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ben?
Yeah, I have a couple things. First of all, just some straight observations. Because I've been lucky enough to be at home and work with my son in 6th grade at Maplewood Middle. I've got to look at Schoology, and I've got to hear his teachers teaching. And a couple things I wanted to bring up. One, I know at the very beginning of the year, the focus was on getting everyone squared away on technology and just making sure that ran as well as possible, with the idea that eventually we would get around to digging into content. And I just, at least from my perspective, I want to say I've seen that in the 6th grade classrooms that I've listened to. You can tell that people are getting comfortable with the technology, teachers and students, and it's really great to see these really clever, creative, innovative ways to try to find ways to engage kids, and also to really get into the content, which is what we would obviously be looking for if it was a traditional school year, if it was a normal school year, but it's not that at all. Just for an example, breakout rooms is something that I've seen the teachers using a lot, and it really seems to be going as smooth as it can be, as long as you trust your students are doing their thing. But then you can see the teachers will pop in and out of the different breakout rooms that are out there. So you'll see the kids have to work by themselves, but then the teacher will pop in and say, "How's it going? What are you guys talking about?" And it's really encouraging to see that kind of thing happening when we've had less than a year to plan for that. I think it's a real testament to how much effort the teachers have put into figuring out ways to engage our students, as difficult as it has been. And again, I've only seen it from 6th grade, but it's happening in multiple 6th grade classes. So it's not just like one teacher doing that kind of thing. It's your science teacher, it's your math teacher, it's your English teacher doing these breakout sessions, which is, teachers really pushing as hard as they can to try to make this work under the current conditions. And then I'd say we'd be missing out if we didn't highlight something that Manny said, the student board rep, way at the beginning of the call. Today is the end of the first trimester. And I think that's a really big milestone. I think that's a big reason to celebrate, with all of the tough, negative things that have been happening over the last year, 2020. Here we are in the middle of a horrible, horrible pandemic, and we have finished a trimester of school. It's been a bumpy road, but we're here, and we're still talking about it. We're still planning, and we're still looking forward to the 2 other trimesters that are coming. And I want to thank everybody for busting their butts to make this happen. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks, Ben. Carly?
Yeah, I want to echo Ben with the thank you to Ms. Jenna, our superintendent, Christine, and to Rachel with the consistency with the data that you've been collecting and just delivering and communicating on this platform to the community in our district. On the receiving end, as a mom in the district, as a Black mother, just looking at that data just makes me feel like District 622 has taken a stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. Like, you know, everyone's saying it, but maybe that's the evidence right there that someone has been intentional, or a group of people have been intentional with their efforts. They took those dark days of George Floyd and did something about it. And the parents, like Nancy was saying, in collaboration and just all those many different efforts on that kid made a difference. I honestly don't recall ever seeing that type of data. It's always been opposite. And it's not that we want one to win and one to lose. It's just, when have we seen that? So I'll never forget that data. And I'll always use that as a model in my future, in my work area, where I'll use this district as a model, an example of what we did in this district. And I want to say, if the teachers are listening, thank you. As a parent, I was concerned when I moved here, just, you know, being one of the Black people on the block, and I don't know my neighbors. Oh my God, I was scared. Does the teacher care about my little Black son? I was scared. I cried. The teacher helped me. We cried together. Then we wiped our eyes and we said, we're going to do this. And I think that's the evidence of that. So thank you. I can keep going on and on, but thank you. And I'm going to brag about that. I'm sorry, I'm going to brag. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Carly. Nancy?
We will miss Carly so much on the board. She's just awesome. So Carly, don't go away.
We won't let her, I promise you.
I just want to, again, I raise awareness or confirm people's awareness about the mental health issues that are facing our kids. You know, they're just, the achievement data looks good and hooray, but you know what, they're just not getting you know, the interaction with peers and choir and band and theater and orchestra and and sports, and so there's a lot of that, you know, social emotional learning that is not happening. And so I encourage people to reach out to others however they can safely to combat the pandemic of loneliness. I think it's really concerning. So I want to say that. And then the other thing is to capitalize on what Ben was saying, my little testimonial about my kindergarten grandson. Again, he's a Weaver student, reading and writing like a champ. You know, I mean, it's just awesome. But you know what? My daughter is really with 3 little kids at home. I mean, parents are stressed, and a shout out to parents. Honest to God, it's just a lot to keep the whole ship afloat. Hang in there, parents, hang in there, teachers, hang in there, community. We will survive. There is hope. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Nancy. The last thing on our agenda here we have is our future board meeting dates. We have December 8th, 2020 work study session and December 15th, 2020 business meeting at 6 p.m. And with that, unless there are any additional comments or questions, if not, then we can adjourn the meeting. So can I get a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Livingston,
Second.
second by Navy. All in favor, say aye, and Kim will do the roll call.
Steve Hunt,
Aye.
Becky Navy,
Aye.
Ben Jarman,
Aye.
Carly Ruff,
Aye.
Nancy Livingston,
Aye.
Michelle Yenner.
Aye. So that motion is approved and meeting's adjourned. Have a good night, you guys. Bye-bye.